I didn't meet my friend Kat in the most conventional way you'd meet a friend, like through school, a job, or mutual friends. She was the daughter of a legendary Hollywood screenwriter, and coincidentally, I was working a job delivering cupcakes to such Hollywood screenwriters and their daughters. She would fly in from San Francisco and spend most of her days holed up in opulent hotel rooms at the Beverly Hilton or the Standard. We'd tour local bars and clubs, get kicked out for being too drunk, then return to the hotel, order room service, and smoke cigarettes on the balcony, sitting there wasted and laughing about nothing until we passed out. Eventually, I learned that smoking cigarettes and laughing at nothing were a great way to stall maturity in your mid-20s. But it felt like the most glamorous years of my life. But being around Kat sometimes, I felt totally out of place. I'm the daughter of two blue-collar Southern Californians, and I was hanging out with a girl who had known nothing but billion-dollar luxury her whole life. I worked minimum wage, but as soon as I punched out, I'd lose my delivery uniform and hop into hotel elevators with Hollywood moguls to find Kat in a presidential suite. Once, on my way to the hotel, I asked her where I should park my car, a shitty Ford Focus with a passenger side mirror duct taped on. Yeah! Oh, just get it valeted and charge it to the room. Hiding my sheer embarrassment of the idea, I deflected. But isn't that expensive? Laura, my dad's literally a millionaire. After that, I didn't ask any questions. And I specifically avoided a question like, why is this girl hanging out with me? In early October, Kat flew into town heartbroken over a guy. Her status afforded her opportunities to have lunch with all sorts of celebrities. Such a lunch and such a heartbreak occurred after she met Tim Armstrong, the lead singer and guitarist for punk bands like Operation Ivy, Rancid, and The Transplants. Well, some would say punk. It's arguable. To Kat, he came off as this tattooed, hardcore boy with a dangerous past. To me and everyone else, he came off as a poser trying too hard to impress people after Spin magazine branded him a sellout. He was always dropping names of people he worked with and ended each sentence with the phrase, you know what I'm saying? Regardless of his street cred or lack thereof, after several lunch and dinner dates, Kat developed a horribly intense and delusional love affair with the balding punk rocker 14 years older than her. I tried to be supportive of it, but I totally saw it coming for what it was. When Kat confessed her crush to him, the only thing Tim could confess back was that he was interested in writing a screenplay, which had been the reason for their dates. Turns out, Tim Armstrong was a shitty opportunist looking for a connection, not romance. I attentively listened to her stories of heartbreak and woe, as any good friend would, especially a friend who's getting to crash at her all-inclusive luxury hotel with her. I can tell you it's easier to wipe away your friend's snot in tears when it's on the Four Seasons immaculate 1,000 thread count sheets, cushioned with goose down feather pillows. Are these goose down? My word. But I wanted to hear her hate on him because, by comparison, stories of his insincerity made me feel like less of a fraud. At least he was quasi-famous and she could relate to that. I felt like a nobody clinging to this glamorous Hollywood lifestyle of hers. But again, I didn't ask any questions. For this particular case of heartache, our standard routine of getting drunk on Kettle One at the Chateau Marmont wasn't going to do it for Kat. Instead, we turned to another one of Tim Armstrong's scorned lovers who we found on the internet. Brody Dale, Tim's ex-wife and lead singer of the Distillers. She was punk. She had the face of Audrey Hepburn, but the prowess of Courtney Love. Well, Courtney Love minus the messy heroin withdrawals. If there was one woman who could save this weekend for us, it was her. And as fate would have it, she was playing a show 15 minutes away at a divey music club. We immediately threw on our torn fishnets and red lipstick, got to the club, double-fisted beers, and crammed ourselves into the crowd as close to the stage as possible. For the next 40 minutes, we sang, sweat, and screamed alongside Brody, wanting so badly to be her and not the confused identity crisis having 20-somethings we knew we really were. We both left the club, our feet barely touched the ground, and our faces practically melted off from all the punk rock girl intensity. We got in the car and simultaneously screamed at each other about our favorite parts of the show. I kept blabbering as Kat rolled down the window and lit a cigarette. Her excitement had quieted to what looked like inspiration, and then a mischievous smile. A silent concentration came over her, and I knew the look she had on her face. As a girl who's also been heartbroken and drunk in the alleys of Silver Lake on a weeknight, I knew the look on her face. Before she could even say it, we were in his neighborhood anyway, so we were going to drive by Tim Armstrong's house. Because that's totally what you do. When some guy doesn't return your calls, but you know where he lives, and you're drunk and psychotic enough just to drive by for no reason, other than you can, and you deserve it because you gave him the best years of your life, or like, you didn't, but you just watched a woman named Brody who did on stage for 40 minutes, and it was nothing short of a religious experience. That is just what you do. That is totally what you do, ladies. I drove, and Kat navigated the closest way to Tim's house in between furious puffs of her cigarette and dramatically tossing her short black hair. Once we got to his house, she got quiet, searching for any light inside. It was dark. He obviously wasn't home. I was still channeling Brody's adrenaline, and with the engine still running, I looked over at Kat. "Fuck him," I said. "You know, fuck him. He's such a douche. He can choke on his stupid screenplay." She was silent, frozen, staring longingly at the house with her forgotten cigarette ashing on the side of my car door. I saw her face start to scrunch up, the way it does when you want to keep it from crying. It was hopeless. Both of us were charged with this awesome feminist rage up until this point when Kat melted back into this broken-hearted sap of a girl. I watched as this girl who's had all the luxury in the world to make her happy could barely muster a smile, stuck in the memory of some shithead who made her feel obsolete. I saw her feel foolish and vulnerable, the way guys make you feel when they don't like you back. And there, in my shitty Ford Focus, with the passenger side mirror duct taped on, I flashed back to all the guys that made me feel the same way. Like Todd, in 7th grade, who called me a weird albino when I told him I liked him. Or Adam, when I was 19, who told all his friends he'd rather eat shit than sleep with me. Or James, who actually did sleep with me, but then the next day went on stage and talked about it during his stand-up comedy routine, specifically how creepy it was that I had Back to the Future posters all over my room. I mean, what the fuck? I didn't have the money or the Hollywood heritage or elite status that Kat had, but I knew how it felt to have your heart crushed. I was at a loss for comforting words, but I wanted to show her she wasn't alone, because enough is enough, and it's time for all those shitheads to feel the wrath of what we feel. Brody Dale wouldn't stand for this shit, and neither would we. As a woman scorned, so help me God, I wanted to throw a grenade at the memory of all those guys and at the house of Tim Armstrong we sat out parked in front of. But I didn't have a grenade. I did, however, have inside me a certain feminine waste product that had been absorbing female potency similar to that of a grenade. And in a brief moment of feminist insanity, I knew what needed to happen. I rolled down my window and told Kat to hold the steering wheel. With the car still running, I unzipped my pants. Lunging my hips forward and reaching down in my underwear, I pulled out my tampon and flung it in Tim Armstrong's driveway. My tampon hit the back truck of his window, the window of the back of his truck, stuck there for about 4 seconds, then slowly slid down to the truck bed with a couple tumbles and a triumphant plunk sound. As soon as we saw it land, I put my foot on the gas and drove away. We sped off, maniacally laughing and cussing and agreeing it was the single best thing either of us had ever seen in our entire lives. You just threw a bloody tampon at Tim Armstrong's house. Yeah, I did. I totally did. He said that about 8 times. Kat and I's relationship fell apart about 2 years ago. We were both trying to convince ourselves we had so much in common and were such good friends when, in reality, we were two posers going through different phases. I wanted to escape and see what it was like to live as fast, glamorously, and reckless as I could. And Kat just wanted to slum it for a while with the first blue-collar, normal-ish girl to deliver cupcakes to her room. For whatever phase I was going through, it served a purpose that most rebellious and idiotic 20-somethings need. It was punctuated by a moment of understanding with a friend through the universal feeling of foolishness that comes with being a girl sometimes. And it left Tim Armstrong with a truck full of tampons. Thank you.
Laura,